And they're like, I've never seen, such a woman just doing her thing in different positions over the bed. I'm squatting. I'm doing different natural women positions. And I'm not screaming. I'm not yelling. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just breathing. I'm moving. I'm natural. I'm in my zone. And they're like, forget the IV, okay? Like this woman, she let her do her thing. Yes. She knows what she's doing. I know. One of the nurses was like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Welcome to the show, ladies. Today, I am interviewing the incredible Stephanie Okori. She is a licensed therapist, Christian life coach, and faith-based entrepreneur who helps women overcome fear, build confidence, and step into the life God has called them to live. She is a mama of two beautiful boys, and she took the pain-free birth course for both of them, and she is here to share her story of her incredible birth. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you, Karen, for having me. I'm so excited. This is honestly a dream because I am obsessed with the course. I tell all my friends, all my future mamas, you need to get this course. I'm literally walking proof that it works, and it's so helpful in just mindset, especially as a therapist. I'm huge on mindset as a coach as well. Huge on mindset, huge on what you believe and how you walk into things and being able to feel as prepared as you can for birth. But especially mentally, that's a game changer.
It is. Yes, your mental state is a game changer in labor. And I just wish more women understood that. There's so much more we can influence. How did you first find Pain-Free Birth or my account?
So I actually came across the book Supernatural Childbirth by Jackie Mize, right? And I mean, when I was pregnant with my first son, Asa, I was absolutely that miserable pregnant woman. Like, just totally, I am somebody who's not used to being sick. And so having all these symptoms was very new for me. Not a fan, do not recommend. And so I came across a book, and it just put so much faith in me, so much life in me, so much belief in me. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to tolerate this. I speak against my symptoms. No nausea, no heartburn, no vomiting, and it worked, for a lot of it. But yeah. And even though sometimes I had it, sometimes, I had to take a little medicine, it was about the faith in me that it inspired so much faith. And it actually helped me to believe for my delivery, because one of the things I was always afraid of was having children, because I was afraid of the pain. That's the one thing. I do not have a high pain tolerance. Apparently God has proven me otherwise, but I do not have a high pain tolerance. And so I was 100% not looking forward to it. And so when I found this book, it really put a new mindset. It shifted my faith. It shifted my belief. It made me believe for bigger and better that God actually had better plans for me when it came to pregnancy and childbirth. And I wanted to be surrounded. One of the things she talks about in the book is only surrounding yourself with people who believe the same thing, who are going to affirm your beliefs for believing God's best for pregnancy and childbirth. And so I went on Instagram, my BFF, and I just searched, I want to only follow people who are affirming this. And I'm pretty sure I just typed in pain-free birth. Okay. And that's probably the most obvious it can get. And obviously Karen's profile came up, and I was like, yes, this is what I need. It was already so much, doubt. Literally no question about it, where she stood.
Where I stood. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so wow. I'm pretty sure I either got on your list or started watching your content and saw your course, and I was like, well, the book is great and it ignited my fire, but I'm somebody who likes to learn. I like to invest in myself and my learning. I invested in the course. I wanted to learn everything. I got into the course, and it changed everything for me. I mean, that course, and I felt also led by God. I felt He was leading me to the course, and I'm somebody who's very spirit-led. I want to be obedient to God. Felt He was leading me to the course. Didn't even know it was Christian. And so when I was going through the course, I was like, this is even better, that she's talking about God and she's affirming my faith, and she even brought up the book. And I was like, oh my goodness. So it was just confirmation, and it was everything that I needed. And it was absolutely the main resource God used to help me have a beautiful birth.
Wow. Thank you. That means the world to me, Stephanie. I love hearing these stories because
Oh.
it's why I do what I do. I just believe women can have beautiful births. What were some of
Mhm.
your biggest takeaways? Like what did you shift in this process? Because this is childbirth preparation and going through this journey, especially as a first time mom, is such a big process of really truly renewing the mind and
Mhm.
believing God for what's possible, getting rid of the old belief systems we've been so ingrained with
Yeah.
to fear childbirth and doubt our bodies. What were some of the biggest shifts that you had to make as you were pregnant with your first to prepare for birth?
Yeah, I love that. So the section, what's in your bag? Okay, that
Class one.
class one, what is in your bag? And that is such a therapeutic model. I don't even know if you know that, Karen. It's such a therapeutic model to be able to go back and say, what are your pre-existing beliefs and misconceptions that we need to get rid of? Because and it's also so biblical. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins. So you
Yes,
really had
girl.
us go through and say, what are some things that you're believing? And I had to confront the idea that was really afraid. I mean, forget the movies and the scenes. I personally was just really afraid of like the sensation of pain, like completely petrified to the point where I didn't even let myself think about childbirth. Like I was like, I just want to get married and like, yeah, we'll have kids, but I don't want to think about that yet. And then here I go 7 months later after getting married and I'm pregnant. And I'm like, oh, that happened quickly, right? Like, oh, okay, I have to deal with this.
I can't avoid that.
Yeah, like here I am. There's no way. There's only one way out. Okay. And so it just really helped me to like confront how afraid I was. And really at the end of it, it was just a lot of fear. I mean, I didn't imagine all the things that could go wrong. It was simply just feeling like paralyzed by fear. And so
Wow.
by acknowledging that fear was the root of it and then going into the fear, tension, pain cycle. Oh, Karen, that I preach that, okay? I'm like, listen, you need to listen to Karen. This is what I preach. I tell it to all my mamas. I said, listen, you need to let go of fear. Let go of fear because it's going to create tension in your body and that's going to create pain. And I'm like, if you gave me the formula to avoid pain, and really it comes down to my fear, and my fear God showed me was the root of all of my childbirth issues and and just feeling unconfident.
Yeah.
That cycle did everything for me. So not only did God show me, okay, this is the root of it, it's your fear, and then this is how we can deal with your fear.
Yes.
That was game changer.
Oh, I love to hear it. And I think that is such an important point you hit on because a lot of women will get defensive when I talk about this and saying like, yes, fear contributes to pain. It's a physiological process in our body. And then they get upset. Like I'm telling them, you can never be afraid or it's your fault that like labor went this way. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
just like, we have to educate ourselves and understand the process of our body and also know that there is a solution. I'm not just like putting women, I'm never going to put women down for being afraid because all
Yeah.
of us go through a fear, but it's our
Mm-hmm.
job to confront it. And what you
Yes.
spoke about is like you had to confront your fear. And then I'm going to give you the solution to how to deal with it, how to
Mm-hmm.
actually like shift your brain. So like now we're going to focus on what our body's capable of. Now we're going to build our faith. Now we're going to put in our bag the stories and the education and the knowledge that's going to serve us and build our faith and eradicate that fear. And that's
Yes.
the journey. That is the work of pregnancy. And you went full in, like you dove in. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No. Absolutely. And the opposite of fear is faith, just like you said. And so I really, because I was so afraid and had been so afraid for so long, I couldn't build the faith, right? And so that's when
yeah, when you're
the
just
book came
paralyzed.
in. You're
Yep.
so paralyzed. And to know that obviously, like you said, it's natural to have these like fears, but when you brought in the spiritual component in your course, it brings in all the spiritual components, which is like fear is not from God. It's a spirit of fear, and the spirit of fear can take over you, and it can start to control your own pregnancy. And I was like, I'm not inviting the spirit of fear in my pregnancy at all. And so your course helped me to do that with the tools and the skills that I needed without, like you said, without shaming me, without making me feel like there was something wrong, right? It just helped me to, it helped to empower my faith with the actual practical tools I needed to combat what I was feeling.
Yes, I love that. I think it's so beautiful, this process you went on. And I think a lot of women will go into childbirth preparation and get educated and take a course, or they'll do a bunch of research online, Googling, YouTubing, all, following all the accounts, but they're not doing the deeper work of actually confronting their fear. They're just layering knowledge on top of their fear. And knowledge is alone is not going to help you birth your baby, because what's going to happen is you're still stuck in your head. You're still analyzing it. You're out of fear trying to control it, even subconsciously. So that first step is so important, which you did so beautifully, is you confronted your fears and addressed those, and then added on the knowledge, the education, the other components in a process. That's why I designed it the way I did, because if you just add knowledge without dealing with the fear that most women aren't even aware of, that we're carrying around, all this conditioning, without addressing that first, the knowledge is just going to be more things that you have to be afraid of, or more things to fear over, or am I doing it right? And all those questions. So walk us through your birth. What happened when labor started, and was it fast? Like, what was your mindset after all this prep work going into it, feeling those contractions? How did you respond? And what did it feel like?
Yeah. So my son, he ended up coming 3 days past his due date, right? And so I started to feel the sensation of like mini contractions like that night before bed, but it was like very little, very mild, like nothing really. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I started to feel what was the beginning of the labor in the middle of the night, like 1 a.m. around that time. And this is like the perfect example of how God, and God was with me through the whole process. He was just reminding me of things that I had learned in the course too. And I woke up and it felt like this like very intense like period cramp. Like we know how they feel, right? It felt like this intense period cramp, except I was surprised because like it hurt at the time, like it hurt. And I was like, oh, like, no, no, no. And it hurt me. And I remember my husband was sleeping. I remember waking up and like running to the bathroom. And I was like, Lord, no, 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 no. Like, if this is just the beginning, I can't do it. God, no, 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 no. Please, God, don't let me do it. Don't let me take it away. And I remember just begging him, like, please, God, don't do it. Don't let me do it. Please. It hurt. It hurt. And he said, Stephanie, what did you learn? What did you learn? And I was like, you're right. Okay. You're right. You're right. Like literally a conversation with God. Like, okay, no, it's because I'm afraid right now. It's my fear. It's my fear. And I'm like, no, I'm taking over this. I literally, like, Karen, me to God. Like I'm empowering myself. I'm taking over this. And I'm not I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to invite fear in the spirit of fear, because that's going to make me tense, and I'm already tense, and that's going to make it hurt more. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm going to ride it. I'm going to relax into it. I'm just going to, lean back and let it come over. And that was such a significant moment for me, Karen, because it defined the rest of my labor. And I labored from 1 a.m. that night, that Sunday night. By Monday at 7 p.m., he was born. Like, he was out. And throughout those hours, like, that was my mindset, that I was not allowing any fear to come in. And I promise you, Karen, that was the last time it hurt. That was the last time, the first time and the last time, because I was like, we're not doing this. We prep for this. We're not inviting tension. We're not inviting pain. And I set my mind, like, we're doing this. We're going through. So as each contraction, they start off very little in the beginning, and then they build up over time. As each contraction came, something that you teach is that you're building like the rhythm, right? Yep. I started to learn the rhythm of how the contractions were coming, and how I can ease my mind, and how I can relax into it, and just let it happen versus trying to fight it, trying to be tense, trying to be upset about it. I just allowed myself to relax and to sway into it. And that helped me as the contractions increased and intensified and became closer and closer and closer together. I wasn't feeling the pain. I wasn't feeling the tension. In fact, it almost was like, wait, am I even going through contractions right now? I remember my doula was there and I remember asking her like, hey, like, am I even like contracting right now? Like, and she was like, am I even in active labor? She was like, oh my gosh, yes, like you are. That's how effortless and how how it was so much in rhythm for me. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And you had a hospital birth. So at some point here, when did you transfer or take that, drive to the hospital?
So I labored at home it started at around 1 a.m., like I said, and then around 4 p.m. in the afternoon, that Monday afternoon is when we were like, okay, let's go to the hospital because the contractions were like about 2 minutes apart and they were definitely more intense. But from that time, I mean, I had a beautiful labor at home. My doula was there. We had the worship music playing. I was just like doing different positions at home. We went outside to the pool. I labored around the pool. I went, I laid down for a little bit. At one point, even though I was not in pain, Karen, I really was not in pain. You get exhausted. I was like, I'm a little tired, towards maybe after,
you're up all night.
Yeah, you're up all night and then you're up in the morning and then you're still in the afternoon, still laboring. And I was like, I'm a little tired. I was telling my doula, Jess, I'm like, I'm a little tired. I want to go lay down. She's like, you can lay down. That's fine. She said, but if you really want to kind of get things moving, like you really kind of want to keep moving and then it'll help it come faster. I said, what? Okay, no, let's go because I don't want to go to sleep and then like, let's go. And that's actually when things picked up even more. I was circling around my island and my husband was there doing the pelvic press, the hip press for me. Like that. Everybody needs to do that. Okay. Everybody needs to do that. Yes. Like husbands, get in position. Okay. And every single time I was like, I said, contraction is coming, or I don't even know what I called it, but I was like, it's coming. And he would get in position and squeeze and I would just breathe. And let it come in. And one of my close friends, she said, you can do anything for a minute. You can do anything for a minute. And so I kept repeating that and kept releasing any type of fear. It's like I just allowed my God to take over. I allowed my spirit to just not be frazzled or upset or anxious or wondering when it's going to happen. No, I said, I'm just going to take it one wave at a time, one contraction at a time. And it just intensified. We got into the car. It was around 4 p.m. That car ride, I would tell you, listen, do not recommend this. The car ride to the hospital, I was definitely zoned out, like I was zoned out and I was, because I didn't have my hip presser. My husband was driving and I was like, okay, like, definitely a fight not to let tension come in. But I got through the 15, 20 minutes. I was like, mad at every time he broke. I said, just keep going. Forget the lights. Let's go. But it wasn't because I was like in pain. It was just intense. But I didn't know, Karen, upon arriving in the hospital, apparently my decorum and my demeanor was so peaceful and just a woman who's just breathing in and out, just intensely breathing in and out, that they didn't even really know that I was in labor. And so they're taking their time. They're doing the paperwork. They're like, oh, you were set for an induction for tomorrow. And I just took it. I didn't want the induction. And I said, I'm just going to do it just to have something on the books. Right. But I was praying against that induction. I said, Lord, I don't want an induction. That's just not what I want for myself. And God said, don't worry about it. I got you. And he had my baby delivered the day before the induction. And that was just a gift from God.
Get out.
And so I'm walking in there. They're like, oh, you're checking in early. And it's like, oh, I guess, okay, you're having the baby. You're having contraction. It wasn't until triage when I'm laying down.
In labor. Oh,
they don't think I'm in labor. I'm so
because you're handling them so well. You're tuned in.
So tuned in. Yes. It's not until I'm laying down and triage, they check me. And they were like, oh, would you like an option of the epidural? I'm like, and I thought about what you said. And it's like, oh, well, if you want it, it's fine. Like you can always have an option. I'm like, yeah, I'll have it as a backup, just in case if, because I'm thinking it's going to get in more intense. It's just going to get like,
you can't,
and I'm like,
your brain will play tricks on you. Oh, it's going to get worse.
Yes,
you're
exactly.
only however many centimeters. You're still in labor.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh no, yeah, sure. And then they check me and they're like, you're 10 centimeters dilated.
No.
And I was like, what? We labored at home until I was 10 centimeters dilated.
Wow. And you arrive at 10 centimeters and they don't even think you're in labor.
No.
That's how calm you were.
Yeah.
Get
just
out.
breathing in and out every 2 minutes as the wave is coming. And I'm like,
girl, I love it. And this is, ladies, like, you just have to appreciate this. This is a first-time mom delivering in a hospital. For all the doubters out there who think, oh, you can't have a pain-free birth as a first-time mom. You can't have a natural, unmedicated birth. It's too hard, or you can't do it in the hospital. That's for sure. Like, just listen, lean in. This is your story. This is for you. What I'm hearing you say the most is like, you were not a victim to your labor. You took full responsibility for every thought that was going through your mind, for how you responded to every sensation and contraction. And you kept fear out of your heart and your mind. And you said, this is my intention. This is what I'm doing. And you put your full faith and full, like, everything into this. And I think that makes all the difference when we are willing to look at labor and say, like, I'm going to own this. Not just like act like this is something happening to me and I'm just the victim of it, but I am in control of my thoughts, of how my mindset, and how much that makes a difference. Girl, you showed up at 10 centimeters and they didn't even think you were in labor?
No. They were like, okay, like, are you checking in? You're a day early. Are you okay? You're having contractions? Okay. Like,
okay, it'll be a while. Oh, you're 10 centimeters.
We'll get you back there soon.
Wow.
And my doula, thank God for my doula, because she's like, we need to get back there. She is in full labor. Like, she is an active. She was advocating for me to like, let's go. Let's get her back. And
like, you don't understand.
She's like, I've been here. I know where she's at. And they're like, oh, wow. Okay, you guess you're here early, no problem. We'll see you soon.
And they're not used to seeing women who are calm in unmedicated labor. That is not a common occurrence in a hospital, ladies. So you might need to advocate for yourself a little bit. But what surprised you the most about your birth experience that was different than what you had expected?
Oh, definitely that was the most surprising, getting there and being 10 centimeters, because Karen, I was so surprised at how easy it was. I was mind blown at how easy it was to have gotten here, because the entire time, even as I moved, they finally moved me into the labor and delivery room. And they were trying to go through with their regular procedures, have me hooked to an IV and have me in different positions. And my doula, she was like, no, this is her plan. Like, let her do her thing. And by the grace of God, this is a gift for God. I didn't want to have anything on me. I have the smallest little veins in the world, to the point where they have to try to poke me 15 different times, to the point where I was so in my zone doing different positions that the little IV kept falling. And they were like, the nurses were like, forget it, leave it off, just leave her, let her do her thing, and they're like, I've never seen, such a woman just doing her thing in different positions over the bed. I'm squatting, I'm doing different kind of like just natural women positions. And I'm not screaming. I'm not yelling. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just breathing. I'm moving. I'm natural. I'm in my zone. And they're like, forget the IV. Okay. Like, this woman, she let her do her thing. She knows what she's doing. I know one of the nurses was like, I've never seen anything like this before. Like, I've heard her in the back, to the point where I can hear my nurses like in the back. I was surprised at how alert I was, how easy it was to get. I remember the sensations. Yes, they got it more intense, but it didn't hurt. I wasn't in pain. My dad even stopped by when I was in the labor. He stopped by at my house, and my dad's a doctor, and he's just being protective. So he's pretending like he's using his computer, but like secretly looking at me going round and round my kitchen island as my husband's like pushing my hips. And you could tell he was like, is it going to get worse? Like, because she is just like riding this thing. And I remember my dad said, you were like a superwoman. Like you were like a strong woman, because you were just so peaceful. Like I didn't even know you were even that dilated, until, you eventually went to the hospital, but it didn't dawn on him because he wasn't seeing the normal symptoms of like
it's not
women
the
in pain and
typical woman
exactly
out of control, right?
Exactly. And so that he was really impressed, and nurses were really impressed. And it was to the point where I finally got on the table, because after a while you feel the sensation of like, okay, pushing, and he was crowning, and I remember getting on the table. And this is the part where I looked at my doula, and I was like, Jess, am I in active labor yet? She looked at me. She
was 10 centimeters asking if she's in labor.
And like already in the pushing stage. And I'm like, am I there yet? And she was like, yes, yes. She just was in bewilderment, like disbelief, because I was like, I'm just waiting for it to be like because it's so not that I expect. Yes, it's not that I was inviting pain or expecting pain. It's just that I was preparing myself for the big buildup. Yeah. And I was like, how am I at the big buildup already? And I feel like I'm managing it. Like it feels like nothing. Like I don't feel anything. Like I'm confused, right? And so I was like, am I in the right? Am I there yet? And she was like, yes, you are. And it was to the pushing stage. And
so you couldn't believe how easy it was, even in the hospital.
Yeah.
In like going into pushing. And that's like the most intense part, is like, you just got through transition and now you're pushing. Like those are the moments where it's intense, and you're still thinking, oh, it's got to get worse, right? Like, am I there yet? Oh my gosh. So what did pushing feel like? Did your body start to like labor that baby down? Like what happened next?
Yeah. So I definitely got that feeling of like, okay, I get the sensation to push, you feel like you got to do a bowel movement, and you feel all that pressure. And so that's when, I transitioned. I got on the table. He was crowning, and I just tried to, push as naturally as I could. That part was a little bit harder, because I think in that place was when, obviously, because he's crowning, my doctor showed up, and she's trying to like position and trying to, that's when the doctor kind of starts to do her role. And so I think at that point I was also so eager to like kind of go, like, I'm ready to be done. Like I'm not super exhausted, but I'm like, I'm ready. Like I think at that point I was like, there's so many people here, because when the baby crowns, it's like a shift in like the energy. Like everyone's like, oh, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Like, let's have this baby come. Let's do what we can. And so I pushed as like naturally as I could. Later on taking the course, I probably did a little bit of like force pushing a little bit, because I think I was just very not anxious, but eager to kind of like, let's go. I was exhausted, but I kind of
have everybody in the room now,
like
encouraging you, or, telling you what to do. And that does really change the energy.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So it's a lot happening all at once.
It was a lot happening all at once. And so, and I remember a part where I just started to feel like I was just kind of giving up. Like I was like, this is like, I just maybe felt like a little overstimulated or tired. And I was like, oh, and I got out of it. I got out my zone, and I felt, that was the second time I felt pain, intense pain. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, Jess, I can't. My doula, Jess, I can't do it. I can't do it right now. I can't do it. I was like, I can't. I was withering on the table, on the bed. And she was like, Stephanie, go back to what you're doing. Go back to your method. Go back to, you're in your apartment right now. Zone out. Like Jess was like instrumental, because she helped me to go right back into that space because I was so alert. That's the thing, Karen. I was so alert to everything at all times during labor that I was also getting super sensitive to the things that are happening in the room, that I just got tired. And she was like, no, go back, go back, go back. And she helped me to just go right back. Go right back to that space, that worship playing, music playing space, that inner space of like, it's just me and Jesus. It's me breathing everything in, breathing the pushing out, breathing all this stuff. And so an event that helped me to just, continue to labor and push the baby out. And, he came fast. He was like, boop. Like he just was like, here I am. I'm here. He came and he was born at like 6:58 p.m. and I did have some tearing, so I was like, "Ooh, that was a lot." But throughout the entire time, up until I did feel the ring of fire, and you did say in the course, you said you will feel the ring of fire. There's no getting around that, and I felt that. I said, "Ooh, fire!" And then as soon as he was out, it was done. It was
How
done.
long were you pushing for?
I was probably, this part, it's so hard to remember. But what doula said, she said it actually happened pretty fast. I probably was pushing this, like the movements of pushing, maybe like 45 minutes, an hour of like stopping, pushing, transitioning, moving around.
And
so
were
maybe
you
like
on the
almost
bed?
an hour.
Almost, yeah.
I was squatting. I was on the bed. I was over, like I was
leaning
doing
over
different positions. Yeah, I was leaning over the head of the bed.
I'd love to hear it.
I was doing all the things. Yeah.
Oh my
I was
God,
doing
so
like
on your knees on the bed, like on your knees, but leaning over the back.
Yes.
Not on your back.
No, not on my back. And she would not allow that. She was like, she was like, we're not doing any. Yeah, she was amazing. And she's also a nurse, and she was very hands-on. And then the way I ended up delivering him, I was like, ended up being on my side.
Yep.
And like having my legs like more in a comfortable position. Because I'm like, I'm not doing any position that makes me uncomfortable. And so that's how he ended up being delivered.
Yeah. And that's amazing. That probably helped you have a shorter pushing time, which for a first time mom, 45 minutes to an hour, that's awesome. Man, yeah. I'm just in awe of you, Stephanie. Like how incredible and powerful and beautiful this birth is. And just you owning your power. Like, and I love that part where you like panicked for a moment, like lost your peace, and your doula's like, no, go back. Like you created a safe place for yourself mentally and emotionally. And that is like the best thing you can do in labor, is to create this internal place where you go and you get in your rhythm and you do your visualizations and you have your mantras and you do your thing. And that is where your whole nervous system calms down. Yeah. And I just love hearing how you're like, there was a moment where you panicked, you let fear in, but hey, you're human and you're doula, and you got back to where you needed to be. And that is the power right there of the mindset that we have. Yeah. Because you saw how immediately that fear came back, and with it, the pain. But then you knew how to get back to where you were. You knew how to get back to your peace.
I remember my first thought being like, wow, God, how is it that I had no pain? I had no pain throughout the entire labor. And this is the first time really that I even have a sensation. And I was like, that means like, God, you really gave me like my pain-free labor. Like I had no sensation outside of those like 2 times where I freaked out, right? I had no, in the ring of fire, obviously, but I had no pain throughout this entire time. And so my healing was definitely healing from the tearing. And like you said in your course, it's, as I watched it the second time, it was really, because I think sometimes as a first time mom, I had a little like shame, like, oh man, like I must have did something wrong, or I pushed too much, or I did this thing. And like God had to like really help me with that, especially as a first time mom. I put a lot of pressure on myself to have like almost like the perfect birth story and the perfect delivery. And instead of seeing how God was so merciful and like gave me exactly what I like wanted, and actually having a beautiful hospital birth on top of that, and nothing can be discounted just because like, oh, well, this thing happened or that thing happened. So throw the whole birth away. It's like, no, like,
right.
this is still a beautiful birth.
Right. And it's so true. We're so hard on ourselves and we judge ourselves. Like women are going to listen to this story probably and judge their birth. And just like they do, we compare ourselves constantly. And, you know, I just tell women like, we do the best we can with what you know. And you, Stephanie, you rocked your first birth. Let me tell you. Like, wow. I mean, and we still learn just like I did with mine. Like pushing was super hard for me with my first two. It wasn't until my third that I'm like, oh, I get, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And when you're preparing for your first, you're probably focused more on the pain element. You weren't maybe thinking as much about the pushing techniques. And so there's always room to grow. And I just love like, yes, we have to give ourselves so much more credit and grace and not compare, whether you're comparing to other women or to like the idealized birth that you have in your head, because that can be a pitfall to like compare to, well, I expected XYZ and I got XY, but not Z. So therefore XY doesn't count. Like you're like your brain, this is how your brain will mess you up. It's like, don't listen to the analytics, but go full in on like what birth can be and be grateful like for everything God did. And it sounds like you found your way there. And God, it's like, cause mindset again and how we're framing our birth story, you can really choose many different frames for the same story.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was your takeaway that you carried with you into your second birth?
Yeah, well, I prepared, you know, the same way for my first birth with my second. I took the course all over again. This time, I mean, I went through the whole course and I was like, I heard things differently.
Yeah.
You know, going through birth, I was like, okay, I need to pay attention to this. And, oh, okay, this is about pushing. And like, oh, I didn't know that about pushing before. And
it's a lot of information.
It's and actually it's like and I realized like even as a first time mom, like there's certain things that you just won't know until you actually go through the birth yourself.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you're probably not going to think, oh wait, the one thing that Karen said in that one video, you're going to think about like the overall like, you know, things that you need in order to carry you through each wave, each contraction. And so the second time around, I was like, okay, ooh, I know. Now I know about pushing and about this and about that and about tearing and all these things. And Karen, I had such a beautiful, you know, birth plan. And, you know, I was like, God got this and I'm going to go in. I'm going to do it. It's going to be even better this time. And God was like, whoop, you know, it was whoop, like Karen, it was like my whole birth plan was just like, God just was like, no. And and literally it's like my whole birth plan. And actually it ended up being one of the things he was telling me, like as I was preparing and I was going through the course and learning, you know, God kept promising me, he's like, Stephanie, this time I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to birth for you. I'm going to birth for you. And so my idea, Karen, was like, oh, like as I'm laboring, he's just going to like bring the baby out. Like he's just going to like pull the baby out. I'm not going to feel anything. You know, it's just going to be amazing. It's going to be another supernatural pain-free birth. And it turns out, Karen, that my baby ended up having a couple things going on. My second ended up being breech, ended up being high fluid, ended up being bigger than my first baby, almost 10. Which is fine. Like all these things individually are fine. Like we can work through them, but all together ended up having a high heart rate, ended up having like a couple of things going on at once that God basically surprised me. And I ended up having a C-section this time.
Yeah. That's a lot of multiple risk factors. I can understand how that would lead to C-section.
Yes. And luckily I could make the decision, but like I remember the day I was like crying. I was like, God, this is not like I was supposed to have my birthing and all this stuff. And I was crying. And I remember God being like, but Stephanie, like I said that I would do it for you this time. And I was like, oh, you just meant it differently
than what
I thought. And honestly, Karen, it ended up being a gift for me because in this time, even though it was hard for me to accept in the beginning, everything ended up being so smooth, so amazing. I was honestly playing worship music in the C-section room, the guy who was giving me, who was working, who was giving me who was monitoring me, he was also a Christian. So we were all like worshiping and playing worship music as this was going on. It
That's
ended up being
amazing.
a beautiful experience, to be honest, Karen. And I felt like it was a gift, and God helped me to understand that this second time pregnancy, my body responded differently. I carried heavier. I was
Mhm.
definitely in a lot more physical pain, and I was working like 10 times more than I was before. So
Mm.
God showed me, like, Stephanie, your pregnancy was your labor. Like,
Mm.
you labored beautifully in carrying my
Mm.
son. And so as a
Wow.
gift, and God knew that even though I was preparing, I was buffing myself up for delivery, I also had this secret, and it wasn't a fear, but it was a secret prayer. Like, God, please help me go through this, because I have been in so much heaviness. Like, even though I pray, and I just
Yeah.
felt this pregnancy was heavier. And I was
Mhm.
like, God, I don't know how I'm going to be able to go through this one. So this time around, I really, like, he heard what I really needed and gave me a birth differently this than what I expected. And he literally like took the baby out for me. And
Literally.
literally. And so and I was like, God, but I did all this preparation. I did all this stuff. And I went through the course again, and you told me to go through the course again. And he was like, because it still matters. It
Mm.
still matters how you go through postpartum by applying these things that you learned in the course still matters. So you're giving yourself grace. You're being intentional about combating your fears, even as you're going through a second time, baby, and like going through breastfeeding issues and all those things. I was applying the things that you had taught around
Mm.
fear and about techniques and about mindset and about connecting with your baby, and even like the stretches and healing. And I was applying all of that while the baby was here.
Perhaps this was the path, that was best for you. And yet you can still make it even a radically different birth than what you prepared for. You can still make it holy and sacred
Mm-hmm.
and beautiful and bring God into the OR and play
Yeah.
worship music. And I can just imagine you there, like in peace. You're not
Mm-hmm.
you're not panicking. You're not like beating yourself up. You're not like freaking out that this wasn't what you planned for. Cause we can go
Mm-hmm.
down that road. And what does that do? That stress and anxiety imprints
Yeah.
on baby. But
Yeah.
now, even though the baby was born by cesarean,
Mm-hmm.
you're still giving that baby a peaceful birth.
Yeah.
And that to me is the victory.
I love that. Oh, needed that. Since it's
Yeah.
still fresh, right? But
Yeah, because
that was,
you're only what,
yeah.
3 weeks
Yeah.
postpartum, right? You're
Yeah.
still processing. And
Yeah.
I think it's so beautiful that we can still give our babies what they need. Even if it's not
Mm-hmm.
what we wanted, we
Yeah.
have the power to really imprint on them a peaceful birth, even if that's just you and your mindset. Even if
Mm-hmm.
that's just you calming your heart in those moments
Yeah.
when they're doing the surgery or when you're breastfeeding the baby in the postpartum, like you have the power as a mother to impart your
Mm-hmm.
peace and your
Yeah.
faith and your joy to your baby and love. Thank you for sharing. What
Oh,
beautiful, beautiful births, both of them.
oh, thank you. Oh, that warms my heart, and it's so encouraging, especially coming from you, okay? Because you're like my like unofficial like doula, literally. And I think, yeah, like circling back, we can be so hard. And actually, it even as you were talking, God was showing me how, in the same way in my first birth, I had to combat a lot of my fears. I also had to combat a lot of my fears about the C-section. And my biggest one was like, oh God, my milk, and what's going to happen? And actually, Karen, I make more milk now than I did the first time around. Quicker,
Awesome. Wow.
quicker. And that's one thing in this pregnancy, God also promised me. He said, Stephanie, I can do things without you. I can create without you. I know you're super involved, and you want to do. You're such an achiever, but like this time you didn't, you didn't need to be involved. Like, you needed the rest, and you did your
Mhm.
part. You labored, you carried this baby to full term, literally to full term. And all your fears eradicated, like breastfeeding, milk supply overflowing, every little thing that I was afraid of. Oh my gosh, highly medicated, everything. The baby is healthy. The baby is fine. I'm healthy. I'm bounced back. You see, I'm here today.
You're 3 weeks postpartum,
This is
girl.
not right. This is not my first time around. So it was just all God.
Wow. I feel like someone needs to hear this, but I'm just hearing so clearly, like, God is in the C-section. God is in the natural birth, and God is in your C-section.
Amen.
And he will show up for you, Mama. Oh, thank you for sharing your stories, Stephanie. It was an honor to have you. I just wish you all the best in the postpartum with your babies. And we'll put your Instagram tag and information for anyone that might want to reach out to you directly, and information as well on the Pain Free Birth course for anyone who is interested in truly renewing your mind and having a beautiful birth with God. So thank you for coming, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you, Karen.